UFC 277, we got one of the biggest rematches in the history of the sport. Julianna Pena taking on Amanda Nunes. Of course, Pena handling business the first time the two women threw down, and what was one of the biggest upsets we've ever seen in the sport. Of course, Pena sunk in that rear naked choke, no hooks needed. She did damage on the feet. The fight was absolutely ridiculous, and I expect nothing less this time around as well. Now, Amanda Nunes is going into this fight as a 3-1 favorite. Of course, the line not as high as it was the first time these two women squared off, but I find that pretty interesting after she just lost to Julianna Pena not that long ago. It shows you the respect some of you guys have for Nunes. A lot of you guys feel that she is the GOAT of women's mixed martial arts. You guys know I'm a little bit on the fence with my answer on that. I kind of feel that that is Valentina Shevchenko, but Amanda Nunes has a chance here to really make a statement and really grasp the reins of that title if she could pull something off spectacular. Other than that, this card is stacked for my liking. There's a lot of fights that I'm interested in. We got a great show lined up. You guys know how we do it. We'll have the timestamps here. We're going to be recapping UFC London. Can't wait to talk about that card with you guys as well. You know, a little bit of a lackluster ending. We'll get to that, but overall, we did very well. All right, guys, strap up. Let's get it.
The teller, the teller, the teller.
It's another day. Left jab, right jab. This is MMA. Mixed martial arts, quick body parts, undefeated when I pick 'em. Who the champ, who the victim? Looking in my crystal ball, I predict the winner. Never stop fighting. If you lose, keep your chin up. Know how the game go. I'm a smart fella. Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller, the teller, the teller, the teller.
What is up, you guys? I hope you're all doing well out there. We got another fight week upon us. Two title fights upon the top of this card. Now, of course, we have an interim title fight taking place in the flyweight division between Kai Kara-France and Brandon Moreno. Technically still a title fight, though. And then, of course, the big women's bantamweight championship rematch that we talked about just a second ago. As I stated, I feel that this card is very stacked. I'm curious what you guys think about it. Comment below. I like the two top fights. I think both those fights will be filled with action. Derrick Lewis versus Sergei Pavlovich. Pavlovich has been on a tear. He's a big boy, and he's taking on Derrick Lewis. We know the deal with Derrick Lewis, man. He throws absolute bombs. Alexandre Pantoja taking on Alex Perez, two very talented flyweight fighters. Magomed Ankalaev taking on Anthony Smith. A lot of people believe that Ankalaev will be the future champion of the division one way or another. Semelsberger versus Morono, Dober versus Rafael Alves. I mean, these are fights that really should be entertaining. We have the UFC debut of Hamdy Abdelwahab taking on Dontel Mays. If you're not familiar with him, he is the first ever UFC Egyptian fighter, I do believe. He has some Olympic credentials, and he's actually been going out there knocking dudes out. He's had some fights over in Gamebred FC. Has a good amount of amateur fights. I know you see him only is 3-0 as a pro, but he has he's starting to gain some traction here, and he's getting a chance in the big show. Klose versus García, Michael Morales versus Adam. Forget about it. Or Adam Fugitt. Fugitt makes his debut. If you're not familiar with him, he just had a very big victory outside the UFC against a fighter a lot of people have respect for. We'll be talking about all this here very shortly. And then Ihor, Potieria. This was a fighter that really has had his plate full as of recently, of course, fighting out of Ukraine. Of course, that whole situation going on. Recently, we've seen him back in American Top Team. He's back to training, and he has a tough test in front of him in Negumereanu. And then Orion Cosce taking on Blood Diamond. I love that fight right there. I love that fight kicking the card off, and that's what will kick things off as we jump into this fight card. But you guys know how we do it. We will be jumping back to the UFC London fight card. We'll be recapping that here in a second. If you guys have a second, please go check me on all my social media, on Instagram at MMA Fortune Teller _, on Twitter at the MMA Teller. Please subscribe, like this video here on YouTube, and I appreciate you guys more than you'll ever know. Let's jump into that recap over at UFC London. So overall, my picks were pretty damn solid for UFC London. And we had 3 official plays. We hit 2 of the 3. We're slightly profitable on the card. Just to give you guys a little brief background as we slide through the card. Nicholas Dalby defeats Claudio Silva. It played out exactly how we thought it would. Dalby just being the younger, fresher, more athletic and stronger fighter. Claudio Silva getting up there in age, seems to be hitting the end there for Claudio Silva. Unfortunately for him, I think that he's towards the end of his career. That's 3 losses in a row. He's up there in age. Victoria Leonardo defeats Mandy Baum. Now, I did have Mandy to win this fight. This was one of the few fights I did pick incorrect. There was no confidence in the pick there on Mandy. I thought that she should have got the job done. I thought that she would be a little bit more polished on the feet, a little bit more athletic, and a little bit more nimble than the meat and potato of Victoria Leonardo, who hasn't been able to get the job done. But Leonardo looked tough. She used some grappling. She got the job done. And Mandy Baum now drops both of her first 2 UFC fights. So let's see what's next for her. Jai Herbert takes out Kyle Nelson. Just a more silky, smooth striker. Kyle Nelson had a little bit of success in the beginning of the fight, but that didn't last long. Herbert even getting some takedowns and whatnot. Now we kick off some betting action here. Muhammad Makayev takes out Charles Johnson. The fight didn't play out as entertaining as I would have liked it to be. And to be honest, I didn't think that Makayev looked as dominant as I expected him to be. But at the end of the day, we talked about the potential for the fight to play out a little bit closer than maybe we would hope for it to be. In the fact that Muhammad Makayev's only 21 years old. Charles Johnson's an underrated fighter. We do have respect for him. But I would have liked to see Makayev shine a little bit better in that spot. I had him in a 2-team parlay. We'll get to the other leg here in a second. But that kicked things off for us from a betting standpoint. So respect to Makayev there. In the next fight, we had Jonathan Pierce to defeat Makwan Amirkhani. We had official action on this. We had a 3-unit play on JSP there. And here's the thing. I saw a lot of people throwing shade towards JSP's way, saying that he's stylistically, he's a bad matchup for Amirkhani, basically comparing him to the Mike Grundys of the world and whatnot. And, I didn't see that. JSP is a guy that actually knows how to use his wrestling background inside the octagon. He actually implements those tactics. He grinds guys out. He smashes them up. He breaks them. He's not a guy that's hesitant to push the pace. And it was interesting. Makwan was actually pushing the grappling pace early. Once I saw that, I felt very comfortable the way that this fight was going to end up going. And JSP comes through, absolutely breaks down Makwan later in the fight, gets the stoppage there. It was a great way to kick things off. It was a -210 betting line that I got, through 3 units at it, and I was happy to collect there. I felt good about that spot. So that's how we went about that fight. Nathaniel Wood faces a little bit of early adversity, but then just ends up breaking down Charles Rosa. I think that's the end of the road for Charles Rosa. He was actually raising his hands as if he had a chance to have won that fight when some judges had it 30-26, giving a 10-8 round to Nathaniel Wood. And Nathaniel Wood dominated that fight in the 2nd and 3rd round. I think it's pretty much the end for Rosa, if I'm being honest there. Mark Diakase takes out Damir Hasnovic. Shout out to Diakase here. He went in and showed once again that he's evolving as a fighter, and he has some pretty sturdy skills, not just on the feet, but in the grappling department and whatnot. So Diakase playing it smart, getting the job done. You guys know how I feel about him as he faces the upper echelon guys in the division, but time will tell. Ludovit Klein pulling off the upset against Mason Jones, one of the only other fights that we picked incorrectly throughout this entire card. And, when I saw Klein at the weigh-ins with Mason Jones and he was towering over him, I thought there was a realistic chance that Klein could pull off the upset. We know Mason Jones took the fight on short notice, even though he seemed well prepared and was eager to get on this fight card. He just seemed really undersized here, and he was not able to push the pace with his grappling and take the fight against Klein. Klein really doing what he wanted to Jones, even dropping him and hurting him pretty bad there. Volkan Ozdemir takes out Paul Craig. I do regret not making this an official play. I was very close to doing so. A lot of people were high on Paul Craig in this spot. People were disagreeing with me with my pick on Volkan here. I'm going to say this much. I had an official play in Nikita Krylov against Paul Craig in Paul Craig's last fight, and I said after the fight that I would take that bet over and over again. I feel Paul Craig is kind of I don't want to say a one-trick pony, but he's a very flashy submission artist. He could pull off those quick subs. He's a tricky fighter, but when you really are based and you figure him out and you you're cautious and you just try to stuff those takedowns and kind of make it a striking affair, you really could pull off the victory against Paul Craig. And a guy like Volkan is very talented on the feet. He's more well-rounded than some people believe. And Volkan went in there and handled business. He landed some big shots. He was stuffing takedowns, making him pay, and really went in there and worked them. Molly McCann, the other leg in my 2-team parlay with Muhammad Makayev. Now, this was a 5-unit play here that I got at -195 together. For some reason, Instagram is not going to show that video. Does anybody know why Instagram does that periodically with certain videos, just kind of statics them? Sorry if you guys can't see that. Maybe you can see it above my head here, but it was a 5-unit -195 together line. I got Makayev at -490 and McCann at -390. I felt very comfortable with both those fights. I really just felt confident that Molly was going to style on Goldie on the feet, and Goldie just does not have the technical abilities with her wrestling to really do anything against a fighter like McCann. McCann showing development in her takedown defense. That was easy money right there. Nikita Krylov takes out Alexander Gustafsson. Another fight that I hesitated on making an official play. I felt comfortable in Krylov getting the job done. I just felt like Gustafsson is a shell of himself. We know that he retired a little bit ago. He was making the return, and I think we've seen the end of him, at least hopefully. Paddy Pimblett gets the better of Jordan Levitt. Now, this was a great fight. The whole background, the whole story of these two guys, how weird they are. I thought it was a very exciting fight. Levitt trying to do what he does best, just trying to use his grappling and whatnot. But Pimblett's well-versed there, and he was able to actually thrive in those grappling situations, and Paddy was going to get the better of him on the feet as well. This was Paddy's fight. He came in as a pretty big favorite, and he came through. No action on him from my point of view. Jack Hermanson takes out Chris Curtis. You guys know I was on Hermanson here as well. He was a slight dog when we made the video picking him. Some action came in on him. It was a very close line. Jack Hermanson, to me, was the fighter to pick here. Chris Curtis, although we just made solid money on him just in his last fight, I wasn't buying in to him against a guy like Jack Hermanson. Jack Hermanson has that size advantage. He's underrated on the feet, has a great gas tank. And Curtis, to me, was slowing down a little bit in that last fight in the later round. I just felt like this was Hermanson's fight, and he showed up and got the job done. Then, in the main event, a bitter ending for me. I had the cherry on the top here. I had a 4-unit play on Tom Aspinall, grabbed it at -135. And you guys saw what happened, man. The fluke injury, the fight didn't even get a chance to really play out at all. Now I'm going to sit here and I'm going to say to you guys that I really felt comfortable Tom Aspinall was going to get the job done. I seen some of you guys saying you felt very comfortable Curtis was going to win the fight regardless. We can sit here and we can chirp back and forth. I just think that Tom Aspinall is an explosive athlete. The way he came out the gates, he did close the distance too much, throwing those power kicks like that. I think that's something that we're starting to see when guys are slamming those heavy leg kicks and they're too close. You see the knee kind of giving out. That was a mental error there. But at the end of the day, the way he came out and was just looking to end the fight quickly, I'd even give him more respect. And I think that if that fight would have played out for a longer period of time, you would have really seen the skills that Aspinall possesses. I'm telling you guys. So it should have been a clean sweep in my opinion. But of course, I'm sure some of you guys will disagree with that. And hey, it was a fluke injury. It was still a slightly profitable night. I think that we should have the clean sweep. And a loss like that, it is what it is. I don't think any of you guys really consider that a loss to you. It's been happening a little bit recently that we saw it with Ortega. I mean, do we really consider the Ortega play a loss if somebody targeted it? It was more of a fluke injury. We've been seeing that happen a little bit more so recently. And that will recap UFC London. We're going to look to attack this next upcoming fight card. It is what it is with that main event. And overall, we did very good with our picks. All right, guys. So let's go slide over to some future action. UFC 277. Let's get it. Now, what a way to kick the card off. We got Orion, Cosce taking on Blood Diamond. Now, you know the deal with the Cosce brothers. These guys bring the fight. We learned that on Dana White's Contender Series where both of them showed up on that card. Now, since joining the UFC, they've ran into a little bit of turbulence, but they're both going to be getting some opportunities in the future to right the ship there. Orion Cosce taking on Blood Diamond. I think that this is a tailor-made matchup for him to an extent. Blood Diamond, of course, having the kickboxing background. Orion Cosce is a fighter that is definitely willing to engage in the feet, but he does have those wrestling capabilities as well. He does know how to grapple. He can get the fight down to the mat, and he can make his opponents pay down there as well. That's obviously going to be the path of least resistance from here. We saw what just happened in Methathetha. I guess that's how you want to say his real name, Methathetha. I don't know if I'm hitting that right. We'll just stick to Blood Diamond, which is obviously a way better name for the guy there. But Blood Diamond, in his UFC debut, he was taken down and pretty much mauled by a fighter that has a similar type of style to as Cosce does in Jeremiah Wells. Both fighters having that steam, having that heat in their hands. They could really hang on the feet as well. But they both have shown to have the capabilities to go down to the mat and exploit opponents down there as well. And that's exactly what Wells did to Blood Diamond. He went into that fight and was strictly using a grappling type of tactic. He went in there and he broke Blood Diamond down, and he ended up finishing the fight there and got that rear naked choke. I think that Cosce has a realistic possibility to do something very similar to that. Now, if Cosce gets a little crazy here and wants to put on a show, I definitely think that there's a realistic possibility that Blood Diamond can starch him or hurt him badly on the feet. In Cosce's last fight, we saw Philip Rowe get a nasty knockout. I believe that was in the second round. But we did see Cosce have some success with his wrestling early in that fight as well. Again, talking about the wrestling capabilities that he does have. He's going to be at a 5-inch reach disadvantage. Cosce has been putting in some time with Team Alpha Male. And does Cosce have an opportunity to do some damage on the feet if he wants to keep it there? I think there's a possibility for that as well. But if we're talking about the path of least resistance, he should definitely use the exact tactic that we just saw Jeremiah Wells use against Blood Diamond. And you guys know Blood Diamond. You see him only here as 3-1 as a pro in MMA. He has a world of experience over on the kickboxing scene. We know that he's very close with Israel Adesanya. So, he's been around championship material type of fighters. And I'm sure he's been working extensively on his takedown defense. So if we see him starting to get better in that aspect, maybe he can keep it on the feet and have some success against Cosce. I favor that Cosce gets the job done here. Again, just having that path of least resistance with the grappling, that's the main reason why I'm going to side with him. But on the feet, don't be shocked if Cosce lands some big shots and ends up being a crazy fight, at least early, because Cosce has shown to really go out early in his fights and just look to steam opponents on the feet as well. But I think that would be the wrong move if he does that. But just keep an eye for that type of potential, because Cosce is just a bulldog. He's crazy. Cosce is going to be a -160 favorite as of right now. Interested to see which way this line goes, but I do like Cosce to get the job done here, and I think that he potentially gets a finish, maybe with his ground and pound down on the mat in the second or third round. So let's see how that fight takes place. But I got Cosce. Negumereanu taking on Ihor Potieria. Ihor made a big splash on Dana White's Contender Series. That was about 8 months ago, almost 9 months ago now. He was a big underdog in that fight against Lukas Podolski, the very talented Polish fighter who has since went on from that fight to have 2 big victories, showing that he is a legit fighter. Now, that's an important victory for Ihor there, because other than that victory that Ihor had, he hasn't really taken out any type of top talent. All the fighters that he's been battling with have losing records, basically no pro experience, 1 or 2 pro fights, not a lot of depth there as far as the fighters that he's taken out besides that last fight. As you see Ihor here making his return back to American Top Team. Now, there is a deep background to his story as he steps into the cage this upcoming Saturday, fighting out of Ukraine. Obviously, his world has been turned upside down a little bit right over the past year or whatnot. I'm willing to bet that his training has not been up to par with how it was in the past. So that's something you definitely want to take into consideration. Negumereanu, on the other hand, has been grinding, getting in work with some of the best fighters in the world. You see him over here at Extreme Couture. I don't know if you saw in the background that Magomed Ankalaev actually in the background. He's been surrounding himself with top level talent, of course, over there. So I think there's a little bit of a difference in background as far as what they've been doing in their careers as of recently. Of course, some things out of their hands, some things out of their control, but just understand that, right? All right, so how do I see this fight going down? Nick Negumereanu, 3 inches shorter, but actually has the 3-inch reach advantage. Nick Negumereanu, a very talented striker. He's very technical. Ihor, on the other hand, needs to get some work done with his striking. It's a little wild. He has that pure and raw power. He's gone out there and it's gotten a lot of finishes in his career. He's a wild fighter. I think he's a true athlete. But you know what? I'm going to be siding with Nick Negumereanu here based on what we just talked about a little bit ago, with the fact that Ihor's world has been a little bit different as of recently. Nick's been just on the grind. It's been a very professional grind as of recently. Had that split decision victory over Kennedy and Checo. That was a close fight. I think there was a point deducted, but still battling with a talented fighter in Kennedy. Again, Kennedy going out there, getting the job done in his last fight, taking out Ike Villanueva like he should have, knocking him out, going to battle with Alexa Kamor. I just think that Nick is hitting his stride right here. He's 27 years old, about to be 28. Ihor is only 26, still also young as well. But I think there's more value on the underdog here, Nick Negumereanu, who's right around a plus 125 right now with the comeback at minus 145 for Ihor Potieria. I would not be shocked if Ihor thrives in this fight somehow. Maybe he digs deep and there's some variables about what he's been doing over the past year. Maybe he uses some of his grappling as well. We know that he is a well-rounded fighter. He has some nasty ground and pound. But give me Nick Negumereanu to keep this fight on the feet and just be a little bit more technical with his striking. And we've also seen that Negumereanu is extremely tough. He can definitely take a shot. So I think that he can eat some of that wild power from Potieria and then thrive with his technical abilities to kind of outpoint him there as well. I'll pick the underdog in Nicholas Negumereanu. Taking place in the flyweight division, we have Yeon Kim taking on Joselyne Edwards. Now, a funny narrative. When you look at both of these fighters' last fight, Kim loses to Priscilla Cachoeira. A lot of people thought that Kim should have won that fight. Actually, the majority of you guys did feel that she should have got the job done there. And then Edwards, there was a good amount of people that felt that Ramona Pascual did enough to take that fight. It was a very close fight. So kind of an interesting narrative as you see one fighter coming off a win who potentially should have lost and the other one coming off a loss who potentially should have won. So an interesting narrative there. Joselyne Edwards, still only 26 years old. Although she has 15 professional fights, I think there's still a lot of room for growth from her. Yeon Kim, a little bit more of a polished fighter on the feet. I think a little bit of an underrated fighter. If you look at what she's been doing recently, now a lot of losses, but losses to Molly McCann, where she went to war with Molly. We see how good Molly is. Before that, a loss to Alexa Grasso, going to a decision with Alexa Grasso. Alexa Grasso is as hot as it gets right now in the division. Yeon Kim, good striking, good technical abilities there. I think that she has the potential to outstrike her opponent here in Joselyne Edwards. Joselyne Edwards also a fighter that we've seen lacking at times with her grappling and her takedown defense. If you want to look into the fight against Jessica Rose Clark, who's been having a rough time as of recently. Jessica Rose Clark thrived with her takedowns in that fight. Do we see Yeon Kim really use wrestling against Edwards here to get the job done? I'm not sure how much success she really has there. And again, Edwards developing and getting better. We'll keep an eye on that, but just understand that she has had some holes in her game. She has shown holes in her performances there. Same thing against Carol Rosa. Carol Rosa was able to exploit her grappling too. Yeon Kim will have a 2-inch reach advantage, even though she's an inch shorter as well. And you know what? I'm going to slightly edge Yeon Kim here. I'm hoping that this fight is somewhat of a war, and I'm hoping that Yeon Kim has the chance to right the wrong in that fight. I refer to that Molly McCann fight where she had a chance to really take that fight, but she kind of gave in a little bit and kind of got broken down. And in that war that she was involved with, maybe she digs a little bit deeper here and gets the job done. Give me Yeon Kim. We'll take a look at the betting line here. Yeon Kim, a very slight underdog, right around a plus 120. Maybe if you're lucky, you can grab her at a plus 105. We'll see how that line moves, but it's a very closely capped fight, and I expect the line to stay pretty close there. Give me Kim. Give me Kim to get the job done. We'll see how Edwards continues to develop as a fighter. Michael Morales taking on Adam Fugitt. About it. Adam Fugitt is getting a big opportunity here, making his UFC debut. If you guys didn't see his last fight, I'm sure some of you guys did see that fight over in LFA against Solomon Renfro. If you guys remembered, Solomon Renfro was the fighter that a lot of people believe was robbed in an atrocious way on Dana White's Contender Series, and a lot of people felt that he should have got a contract. He's a fighter that gets a lot of respect fighting up there in the Northeast of the USA, and a lot of people thought that he did get the job done. He actually had a tough fight. Just real quick to bring that up, he had a tough fight. It was against the striking coach. I want to say of Extreme Couture, one of the striking coaches, a tough Muay Thai fighter, and a fighter that always brings it. And he actually ended up getting the contract, but everybody pretty much agreed that Renfro should have got the nod there. And then Renfro goes out and gets knocked out by Adam Fugitt, and Adam Fugitt was able to capitalize against Renfro, keeping his hands down and whatnot. You got to give him credit there. He's a scrappy fighter. If I'm being honest, I'm not overly impressed with what I've seen from him on tape. He's just a wiry, tough type of guy. He's decently well-rounded, has some submission skills as well. Obviously, he has that ability to get a knockout shot on the feet, but he's not a fighter that you see in the feet throwing really, really technical types of strikes. He's a little bit loopy and a little bit wild with his strikes. But I think that he's just a game fighter. I do believe he's the type of fighter that's just a game fighter, and that could spoil the party on you. He's one of those types of guys. You see him here working some elbows against the fence. Strapped up with all types of gold over on the regional scene. But here's the deal, man. Michael Morales, an Ecuadorian wrestler. Now, when he had his big fight on Dana White's Contender Series, not a lot of people, at least myself, I didn't really realize how much of a solid wrestler he is. And he was going into that fight. He had a big victory there against the tough Russian. Ecuador is not really known for its wrestling, and I guess they do have a little something going on there, or at least Michael Morales is leading the way, because his wrestling is very much up to par. And not only does he have the wrestling in his back pocket, but he's 6 foot with a 79-inch reach for the division, which is very, very good. And he's a true athlete. He's only 23 years old. I will say this. When I'm wrong, I'm wrong. After that fight, I thought that Dana White was kind of reaching when he was talking about Michael Morales having real potential to be a major star and a future champion. I thought it was a very early jump to that conclusion. But you know what? In Michael Morales' UFC debut, after his Dana White's Contender Series victory, he goes out there and he knocks out Trevin Giles. Respect. Now, obviously, he has a long way to go until we're talking about that type of those types of accolades to be one of the GOATs and this and that. But I understand what Dana White was saying now when I see really what he's going out there and doing. He's only 23 years old. I am high on Michael Morales. I think that he is a solid fighter and will be hanging around in the UFC for a long time to come. I think he gets the job done here. I think that he'll get the better of the striking exchanges against Adam. I expect him to outstrike him there, potentially even knocking Adam out there. And when they clinch up and they grapple, I expect Morales to be a step ahead. Michael Morales is coming into this fight as a hefty favorite. You're going to see a line next to Michael Morales' name of a minus 650, as low as a minus 550 or whatnot. And it's going to stay right around that line. Maybe even goes up to minus 800, minus 900. If anything, he's going to be a big favorite is the point I want to make here. I don't expect money to come in on the underdog. And Adam, forget about it here. And I will pick Michael Morales, which I'm sure a lot of you guys are as well. And wouldn't be shocked to see some of you guys throw in a parlay. Wouldn't think that's a bad move necessarily, but get it in quick and get a respectable line. You don't really need to be throwing him in a minus 900, throwing him in a parlay at a minus 900. Try to get him a little bit better there if you want to take him there. Some real nice matchmaking here between Drakkar, Klose, and Rafa García. This is a very evenly matched fight. Been a little bit torn on my selection. We'll get to it here in a second. Drakkar Klose, a fighter that we know throws beautiful calf kicks. He's very strong in the clinch. He has a history of controlling fighters up against the octagon, raining knees, and just kind of controlling fights. Now, we do know with the current judging system that doesn't really help him as much these days. So that is something to take into consideration. But Drakkar Klose has seemed to have evolved and adapted to that, because as of recently, Drakkar Klose has really gone out there and looked to throw leather. In the Beneil Dariush fight, he landed some big shots before eventually getting knocked out himself, but he had Dariush wobbled. And then in his last fight, went out there and knocked out Brandon Jenkins, who was making his UFC debut. Not the most talented fighter, but you'd like to see Klose start to open up and take those types of chances, not just looking to control and dominate him in the grappling field, which he could have as well. Rafa García, coming off 2 victories in a row, looked very good against Jesse Ronson, showing evolution with his grappling. And then before that, took out Nathan Levy in a closely contested match. That was a fight that I capitalized on, had an official play in Rafa García. The main thing that I like about Garcia is that he's still young and he's putting in nonstop work, and his fight game is evolving. Like I said, with the grappling and his striking, he's extremely tough. He's a well-rounded fighter. I think that Klose, in my opinion, probably from a skill set standpoint, is probably going to start to level off. He's 34 years old. He's creeping up on 35. I think we'll see a little bit more and more development from Garcia. But I think that Klose has enough here to get the job done. I think that he whips the calf kicks. I think he might land some big shots. And the fighter who's going to get the job done in this fight, in my opinion, is going to be the fighter that digs deep in the second and third rounds. And I've seen Garcia breathing a little bit heavy in those fights, although he still did prevail against Natan Levy in that fight. But I've seen him kind of, I don't want to say get gassed, but I've seen him kind of breathing a little heavy and later in the rounds. Klose is a very professional fighter. He'll come in phenomenal shape. I think Garcia comes in good shape as well. Don't get me wrong, but I have a feeling Klose might dig a little bit deeper and get the job done late. And the growth we've been seeing with his hands as of recently, wouldn't be surprised if he lands some crisp shots. I'll take Drakkar Klose here. Now, he's a minus 225 up to a minus 250. I think that line's a little high in my opinion. We've seen Klose just recently knocked out in his second previous fight. Garcia throws heavy leather. Would not be surprised if we see Garcia clip Klose and get the knockout as well. But I will edge Drakkar Klose to win this fight via decision. Don't be surprised if we see a knockout victory for Rafa Garcia, though. We got an interesting matchup here. Don'Tale Mayes taking on Hamdy Abdelwahab. Hamdy, I do believe he is going to be the first ever Egyptian fighter to fight inside the octagon. There was a false report that he was Iranian. He is Egyptian. And he's known for having a wrestling background. He has Olympic credentials. Take that with a grain of salt. I have seen him taken down in an amateur fight by a very low-level fighter. That was not a good look to me. Of course, it's a little different. He's learning the overall game of MMA, so maybe we won't be too harsh on him. I mean, obviously, he does have some wrestling capabilities. But Don'Tale Mayes is a guy that's been working on his grappling as well. We know he's a big boy that can throw down. He has some big power. And this is going to be an interesting UFC debut for Hamdy here. Don'Tale Mayes getting it in with Coach Winklejohn. He's been putting in extensive work with Mike Winklejohn and Greg Jackson over there at Jackson Wink. That's a great sign. I really like this picture. I definitely want to pull this up real quick. You see him over there with Greg Jackson at the top of the hill. That team Winklejohn Jackson, they love to use those little hills, those mountains, and run up them. I think that's great for cardio, and that's something that I think that is very important for Don'Tale Mayes to continue to work on his conditioning and his cardio. We know he has big power, and as far as his skill set goes, it's going to constantly be getting refined and tuned working with these types of coaches. You see him over here with my boy Juan Adams. And, there's some talent over there. I know that gym has been slept on as of recently. It's not really known to be at the same caliber that it once was. But that's a good thing for Don'Tale Mayes because they can put in more time with a guy like him. And I expect to see him get better and better, which he has been looking better and better in his last two fights. Knocked out Josh Parisian, used some grappling in that fight. Before that, dominated Rock Martinez. Obviously, he had a major size advantage. How do we see this fight going? Don'Tale Mayes is going to have an 8-inch reach advantage. He's 4 inches taller. He's going to be much more rangy. He has much more martial arts experience. I think that the key to this fight is going to be, how Hamdy looks with his wrestling. Is he going to be able to use those Olympic credentials to maybe get a takedown of his own and dominate some ground time and hold Don'Tale Mayes down? Will he also be able to stuff Don'Tale Mayes' takedowns and maybe get the better on the feet? We've seen that he has some good power there. It's really hard to judge because, like I said, the level of competition that Hamdy was fighting over at Gamebred FC over there, they didn't have any gloves. Those bare knuckle fights. It was an MMA fight, but with bare knuckle basically rules, no gloves on. He was going in there just dominating these scrubs. I don't really see him doing that to Don'Tale Mayes. I mean, I think there's potential he lands a big shot. It's a heavyweight showdown. Of course, he could land a big shot as well. I don't know, though. I feel like I want to favor Don'Tale Mayes here. He's kind of hitting his stride, and I expect Mayes just to be a little bit more comfortable in the octagon. And again, having those coaches in his corner. He's only 30 years old. I expect to see a better and better version of him. And where I feel like Hamdy still needs to show us more, the size disadvantage and whatnot, and the fact that he has those wrestling credentials, but really hasn't showcased those wrestling credentials in the limited amount of fights we've seen from him. So we need to see more from the guy before we're going to pick him here. Dontel Mays has been looking pretty decent. Give me Dontel Mays to get the job done here. Dontel Mays right around a -140 up to a -175 on some books. The comeback on Hamdy, +125 to +140. It's going to depend on how people feel about Hamdy as a fighter and what they've seen from him and his background and whatnot, those Olympic credentials, like I said, once again, how people feel about that whole backdrop. And again, with him getting a bunch of knockouts, but against very lower level fighters, don't expect Dontel Mays just to fold up like a chair there. Dontel Mays is very tough. Give me Mays. I'll edge Mays, but I would not be surprised if Hamdy shows up and we start to see that he actually really is a bulldozer. We'll see. I'm interested in that fight. Drew Dober taking on Rafael Alves. This fight should be a good one as well. You guys know that Drew Dober brings the fight. Well, so does Rafael Alves. Alves coming off a big victory over Mark Diakese. You guys know that was an official play of mine that I got at great dog odds. And Rafael Alves is an extremely explosive fighter, especially in the first round. He has knockout power. He has solid sub skills as well. As we saw him land a big shot, but also throw Diakese in that guillotine choke and finish him off there. You see him going in, doing backflips in the cage and whatnot. He really is a true athlete. Drew Dober, just one of the more polished strikers in the game. We know he has a world of Muay Thai experience. I expect Drew Dober to get the better of the striking here. I do feel that he should get the better of the striking. I've just always been a fan of his there. Sometimes he tries to put a little bit too much power in his strikes and he'll start to slow down a little bit. I want to see him really not put a lot of pop on his shots. I really want to see him just go out there and try to touch Alves up. And I feel that he will have more success if he does that. Of course, he can get that knockout one way or another. He doesn't really have to put too much into it. If he hits Alves with the right shot on the chin, Dober can put anybody out. From the grappling standpoint, Dober's been looking good with his takedown defense. And he's been in there with some really top level talent as of recently. Of course, Islam Makhachev, who's fighting for the belt. He got dominated there. It is what it is. Brad Riddell, I'm still high on Brad Riddell. I know that he's been in a little bit of a rough spot. That was a fight where they really both went at it. Dober slowed down a little bit, but it was an absolute barn burner where both men were just slinging shots at each other. Dober, 33 years old, almost 34, but I think he has a little bit more to give. A lot of pro fights. Alves, almost 32 years old, also has 30 pro fights. Even though he's only relatively new to the UFC, he has a lot of experience as well. I've had the pleasure to watch him fight live over in Titan FC. He's a well-rounded fighter. I do think that Alves is live in this fight, as you see him here in phenomenal shape. I think that Alves has potential to land a big shot on Dober. Dober leaves himself out there at times. He's a very solid striker. He's technically sound, but he's willing to engage, and I would not be shocked if he gets clipped himself. And Alves is well-rounded. He can make you pay in a variety of ways. The longer the fight goes on, though, I do favor it to go towards Dober. I think that Alves will maybe slow down a little bit more so than Dober. Even though we talked about Dober putting a lot out early and slowing down a little bit, but there was a lot more volume given out in those fights. I've seen Alves to really throw some explosive shots early and slow down a little bit more so. So I'll favor Dober there. And I'm going to favor Dober to win the fight. They have a 2-inch reach advantage. Both guys 5'8". So you don't see Dober coming in as the shorter fighter, which is interesting. A lot of times he is the smaller fighter there. I like that for Dober as well. Coming off a big time knockout victory over Terrence McKinney. I have to bring that up as well, of course. Terrence McKinney has been an absolute fire. Now that fight was a barn burner. Dober was rocked a little bit in that fight. They went at it, but Dober ended up getting the job done. And I'll take Dober here to get the job done. Of course, there's potential for him to get a knockout. I could see him styling on Alves for 3 rounds as well, getting a decision victory. Give me Drew Dober to get the job done. And right now, Drew Dober right around a -205 up to a -225. Even up to a -245 on some books over here. So I feel those lines are too high in my opinion. I think that you would definitely want Dober at least right around a -2 flat, -200 flat, maybe 205. I'm telling you, Alves is a dangerous fighter, and don't be shocked if he pulls the job off. But overall, I will favor Dober. Just a very technical striker and an ever-evolving MMA fighter still, even to this day, as old as he is, he's still been working on things. Give me Dober. Alex Morono coming off a 3-fight winning streak, taking on Matthew Semelsberger. Matthew Semelsberger, a true athlete, I believe a former Division I football player over in Utah. I might be wrong on that, but I know he did play college ball. I believe he was a safety, and he's a hitter. He's a hitter not just on the football field, but in the cage as well. His boxing skills have really been coming around. We know he has natural power. Coming off 2 victories in a row. More importantly, the AJ Fletcher victory, the Martin Sano. I'm not too high on Martin Sano. That's a guy that really got his chance because he's part of the Diaz clique. Alex Morono, I really feel that he's had some favorable matchups throughout his career. If you take a look at his last 3 victories, took out Mickey Gall. Mickey Gall also knocked out in his last fight. I saw that fight live. I was cage side for that. That was that big card that took place in Jacksonville. Mickey Gall, I'm not so high on him, not so high on David Zawada, and nothing but respect to Donald Cerrone. But Donald Cerrone, without a doubt, is way past his prime. And, I don't want to be too harsh on Morono. Props to him for going in there and handling business like he should. He's a well-rounded fighter. I don't think that Morono actually is the greatest athlete. When you talk about like Semelsberger being an athlete, I think Morono is a guy that really gets it done by just his work ethic and putting in time. I believe he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. The striking has came around for a while now. He puts out good volume. He's tough as nails. He'll be 2 inches shorter here. He'll be at a 3-inch reach disadvantage. Semelsberger, a little bit of the larger man as well. Both guys right in the primes of their career from an age standpoint. This is a good fight. I mean, I'll never count out Alex Morono in any fight. Morono is a very tough fighter, like I said. But I've been a little bit higher on what I've seen from Matthew Semelsberger as of recently. And I've enjoyed watching him fight very much so as well. I mean, all of his fights have been entertaining. He goes in there. He looks to take his opponent out. He's working on his overall game as well. Although he's been having a lot of success with his boxing, his grappling, his wrestling, his takedown defense, all that has been coming around. And Semi the Jedi is a fun fighter to watch. And I think this is an excellent matchup for him here against Alex Morono, a guy that really does have a name in the game and people respect. I think that Semelsberger will land the cleaner boxing shots. I could potentially see Semelsberger getting a knockout here. We've seen Morono hurt in the past. Maybe not so much as of recently, but knocked out by Chaos Williams back in early 2020. We've seen him. Maybe I'm slipping a little bit there. The Diego Enrique knockout. The fight that I'm thinking of as well, that where he was almost knocked out, was the. Let me pull it up for you guys real quick. It was the Max Griffin fight. Now, he did lose a unanimous decision, but he was hurt badly in that fight as well. And he ended up getting the job done, but he almost blew it. He was hurt badly late in that fight. So we've seen him hurt on the feet. I've seen him bloodied up, and I wouldn't be surprised if Semelsberger hurts him there. I know as we go through his resume, not a lot of knockout losses, but a guy like Semelsberger can test him there. The Anthony Pettis loss, not really the best of look either. As Pettis really has been having a really hard time getting a victory himself over in PFL and whatnot. Give me Matthew Semelsberger to get the job done. I think that he lands the harder, crisper boxing shots. He'll be able to keep the fight standing if he wants, I do believe. Even though Morono has that black belt in jiu-jitsu, I think Semelsberger should be able to keep the fight standing if he wants. And I wouldn't be shocked if Semelsberger uses his wrestling and strength to get on top somehow. But overall, I like Semelsberger to get the job done here. Semelsberger right around a minus 155 to a minus 165 favorite with the comeback on Morono at plus 135. Some of you might find some value next to Morono's name there, seeing dog odds against a guy and Semelsberger who only has 13 pro fights compared to Morono's 28 fights. A guy in Morono that just constantly gets slept on, but pulls through and gets the job done. And again, I think it has to do a little bit with his physical stature. Not a lot of muscles on the guy. He looks like he doesn't really lift weights at all. He just grinds in the gym and he's getting better and better. But I will edge and I will take Matthew Semelsberger to get the job done. And there's a possible knockout victory for Semelsberger on the horizon, in my opinion. All right, we're talking main card talk here. Magomed Ankalaev taking on Anthony Lionheart Smith. A lot of people do believe that Magomed Ankalaev is going to be the future champion. I am actually one of them. I do lean that Magomed will be the future champion. I think he's just a little bit more refined and polished than the champion is right now in Yuri Prochazka. Of course, Yuri always has that potential to land that knockout, but Magomed also has potential to land a knockout over anybody, even though he's been playing it a little bit safer as of recently. We know he has that power, but his grappling and his technique is second to none in the division, in my opinion. He's getting an opportunity to fight against a guy in Anthony Smith, who has a big name in the game, which is crazy to think because, I know Anthony Smith as a guy that used to fight outside the UFC in the middleweight division. He didn't have the most respectable record, came over to the UFC. You remember when Hector Lombard didn't remember his name and Anthony Smith was yelling out, do you remember my name now? As he worked his way to that finish. Anthony Smith was definitely a late bloomer and had a lot more success in the light heavyweight division. And Ankalaev has an opportunity here to get a big victory under his name. I think that Anthony Smith is a name that a lot of people respect. Anthony Smith coming off 3 victories in a row, just submitted Ryan Spahn, knocked out Jimmy Crute, and submitted Devin Clark. And that was after really hitting a rough road, losing to Alexander Rakic, and of course the Glover Teixeira fight where his teeth were falling out. He was stumbling around the octagon trying to collect his teeth. That was a really, really tough loss for him. 34 years old now. 6'4", actually an inch taller than Magomed, and then also with a 1-inch reach advantage, which again, it's so crazy that Anthony Smith used to fight in the middleweight division. Does Anthony Smith have that killer instinct in the cage? Still blows my mind that somebody broke into his house with his family and he got on top of him, and a family member passed him a knife and that guy somehow walked out of his house. But, Anthony Smith's a nice guy, and he's a hell of a killer in the cage if we're being real. But he really is just a nice guy, and I think that he's going to have his plate full this upcoming weekend. I think that he'll be live to potentially land a knockout on Magomed Ankalaev. We saw in Magomed's last fight, he was hit a little bit more than he would have liked in that fight against Thiago Santos, who we know is a killer. But I think that Magomed's going to go back to the drawing board after the fight. He would have gone back to the drawing board. I think that we see a better version of him. I think that we could see Magomed really thrive in the grappling departments. If you're telling me Glover could do what he did against Anthony Smith, I really believe Magomed can do the same thing there, getting this fight down to the mat, working some ground and pound. Again, people forget that Magomed has some serious power in the feet as well. If you want to run the tape back, people only want to look at him for what he's done as of recently, talking about the Santos fight where he was a little gun shy, and the Volkan Ozdemir fight was a little bit lackluster. But run it back furthermore. The Ion Cutelaba fights were barn burners where he was really landing some big shots, getting the job done. How about that front kick he landed on Dalcha Lengambula? Magomed is a fighter that is not to be slept on, and I'm obviously going to be picking Magomed Ankalaev. This is a fighter that I said was going to be a future champion for a long time now. I'm sticking to that story. I'm sticking to that statement. I believe that he is the champion in the near future. If he gets a big victory here, he's knocking on the door for a title shot, and I think that we could see that happen. Now, from a betting standpoint, Magomed Ankalaev is right around that 5-1 favorite, right around minus 500. This has been a common theme throughout his UFC career. He's been constantly coming in as a major favorite. Of course, he's only had that one fight that he dropped against Paul Craig where he dominated the fight for 14 minutes and 58 seconds before getting caught in that sub. Other than that, he's been pretty flawless. We talked about Santos kind of bringing the fight to him a little bit in his last fight. And Ankalaev was a little bit on the back foot at times, kind of on cruise control. It is what it is. You're going to have to throw this in a parlay. Or you possibly take Ankalaev for a finish. But a minus 500 line, it is steep. And we do know that Anthony Smith is a live dog, and he's been having some success as of recently. We talked about those 3 fights that he just won in a row. I just personally don't really see Smith getting the job done here. But we know the story. It's in the light heavyweight division. These guys can crack. Anything can happen. But I do believe that Ankalaev should cruise his way to victory. And if I had to pick, I guess I would say I'd rather have Ankalaev mixed in a 2-team parlay than even throw some money at Smith at dog odds. I don't really see Smith getting the job done here. We'll see how the fight goes. We got a big time flyweight bout here. Alexandre Pantoja taking on Alex Perez. Now, Alex Perez, the last time we saw him fighting inside the octagon, it was for the belt where he lost to Davison Figueiredo. His last loss before that was getting knocked out by Joseph Benavidez. In between those two losses, victories over Mark De La Rosa, Jordan Espinosa, and Jussier Formiga. The Formiga fight was very impressive. We saw him going out there and implementing a very heavy leg kick game. He was absolutely dismantling Formiga's legs in that fight. I think Alex Perez has some of the better leg kicks in the fight game. Pantoja actually has some beautiful leg kicks as well. He throws some very heavy leg kicks. I'm interested to see who has more success in that department. Both guys are phenomenal strikers in the division. Both guys are very well-rounded. Pantoja, of course, showing his submission skills as of recently, pulling off that rear naked choke against Brandon Royval. Before that, defeating Manal Cape. And his last loss before that was against Askar Askarov. And that was a fight where he did break down a little bit in the later rounds. And we know Askar is a tough wrestler, and he kind of was just the more durable and the fighter that really dug deeper in the later rounds and took that fight. Before that knockout victory over Matt Schnell, showing the power that he has in his hands. And before that, the decision loss to Davison Figueiredo. Both these guys' losses to Figueiredo, while Alex Perez was caught in that early guillotine choke against Figueiredo. That fight, to me, was very disappointing. I really wanted to see that fight play out a little bit longer. I thought Alex Perez looked good against Figueiredo for as long as it lasted. He came out. He wasn't gun shy at all. Just made a mental error in there and got subbed. He took some time off. As you see, he has a baby boy now. It's been almost 2 years since he's fought. It's a pretty solid layoff. I think it's about 18, 19 months since he was in there and took that loss against Figueiredo. What was he doing with all this time off? Obviously, I'm sure he was spending a lot of time with his family. You could definitely see that his life revolves around his family, which is a great thing. I mean, many pictures of his baby boy out here. And I'm sure he was still in the gym very, very often. And I'm sure that he's still tuned up and ready to go. Pantoja, on the other hand, we know he's ready to go. He's been very active. Most importantly, he's been over at American Top Team training with some of the best flyweight fighters on planet Earth. You see him over here brushing shoulders with guys like Jussier Formiga, a very crafty veteran. We just spoke about him earlier. He's actually shared the cage with Alex Perez. You see Adrian Moraes, ONE FC fighter, a very, very talented fighter as well. And you guys know the routine with the American Top Team. It's just, it's as professional as it gets. It's just one of the greatest breeding grounds for championship fighters. And I'm really high on what Pantoja has been able to do inside the octagon, and I'm going to slightly edge him here based on that activity and whatnot. But I do think that Alex Perez is live to show up and look phenomenal. I mean, I think that there's some real X factors in this fight. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. That long layoff of Perez, has Perez been evolving his game in a major way? He has stepped away. Has he been in the gym just grinding? I mean, these are important factors that we need to know. I mean, on his Instagram, yeah, he's heavily in the gym, but it's a little different than when you're training for fights like Pantoja has been training for fights against guys like Brandon Royval, Manal Cape, and Askar Askarov, almost fighting 3 times to Alex Perez's last one fight, which maybe it's not as big of a deal, but I like what Pantoja does in the cage. He's explosive. He has good power. Maybe Alex Perez has a little bit of success later in the fight. We've seen Pantoja slow down a little bit, as we talked about. He's an explosive fighter, a little bit of a quick twitch fighter. Sometimes he goes out there, really looks to rip his opponent down to the mat, tries to pull off subs, tries to knock them out early. Seen him slow down a little bit. Maybe Perez hangs tough and has some success there, but I would more so even favor that Pantoja could even possibly pull something off early and maybe even get a finish, maybe a sub or a knockout as well, as Perez meets him there and they clash. Give me Pantoja to win the fight. We'll take a look at the betting line right now. Pantoja is right around a -160 to a -170 favorite. I will edge him there. This is a little bit of a tricky fight, again, based on the fact that Perez has stepped away for a little bit and he's coming back now. And he's coming off a disappointing championship loss that I'm sure he's extremely motivated to get back in there and work his way back to a shot. Let's see how this fight goes. Who do you guys have in this fight? I'm actually interested. Do we have a lot of people taking Alex Perez here? I would like to see who's taking Perez or Pantoja here, but I will take Pantoja to potentially pull off a finish. We got the big boys throwing down Derrick, the Black Beast Lewis, taking out Sergei Pavlovich, the big Russian fighter, a guy that's weighing in at almost 265. He's way up there. He's 6'3", has an 84-inch reach. This guy is the Hulk. And of course, the Black Beast is a mammoth fighter as well. I cannot wait for this fight. This fight is without a doubt one of the fights I'm most looking forward to on this card. Sergei Pavlovich, ever since taking that loss to Alistair Overeem in his UFC debut 3.5 years ago, has looked very, very good in his last 3 fights, taking out Marcelo Gome, Maurice Green, and Shamil Abdurakhimov, all via knockout. Hasn't been very active, only 3 fights within those 3 years. Is averaging just about a fight a year. But you know what? He's still at the prime of his career as far as his age goes and whatnot. I'm sure he's been grinding in the gym. We've seen his skill set shining inside the octagon. His striking is very good. His boxing is very good. And now he steps in here against Derrick Lewis. The deal with Derrick Lewis is Derrick Lewis is a guy that looks to take you out with that one shot. We know his power is ridiculous. He's a very tricky and unorthodox type of fighter. I expect Pavlovich to get the better of the boxing exchanges from like a fluidity standpoint, like from just a volume standpoint, just as they trade. But Derrick Lewis will have that opportunity to just land that one big shot that puts Pavlovich out. Of course, that's the case. Derrick Lewis can go out there. He can knock anybody out at any given time. Derrick Lewis is a little bit of a flaky fighter at times, and we see him go out there and be the bully, but at times he's not the best nail. If you kind of press him and you bring the fight to him and you land some big shots, he does tend to kind of backpedal and kind of gets TKO'd without even getting flatlined. I mean, we've seen him flatlined as well, but there's times where he kind of just doesn't like to be hit and he kind of just kind of cowers and tilts over. We've seen that before. I mean, the Tai Tuivasa was a legit knockout. The Cyril Gain fight, he kind of got picked apart. You saw him kind of giving in there before he was even taken out. He's been finished by JDS, got choked out by Daniel Cormier. We've seen him knocked out by Mark Hunt. Sean Jordan and Matt Mitrione have knockouts over him as well back in the day. I really do believe that Derrick Lewis, although he knocks people out just as good as anybody, he's definitely prone to being knocked out himself. And I would not be surprised if we see Sergei Pavlovich start to tee off and we see Derrick Lewis not really want to deal with it for a long period of time and starts to kind of wilt towards the cage, roll his back along the cage and look to land that big knockout shot himself. But if he doesn't land that big shot, I see Pavlovich just kind of piecing him up and doing work there. From a grappling standpoint, Derrick Lewis is very tricky to hold down. He's one of the only fighters I've ever seen that just gets up like the other fighter isn't even on top of them. He just like stands up and just gets right back up to his feet. Pavlovich hasn't shown us too much with his grappling, although I wouldn't be shocked if he's working on that aspect of his game and maybe he has some control time on the beast down there as the beast gets tired. But I would expect Lewis to pop back up and then get up to his feet and look for that big shot. Overall, though, I like the 5-inch reach advantage that Pavlovich brings. I think Pavlovich is more technically sound with his boxing, and I'm feeling a knockout victory for Sergei Pavlovich. I would edge Sergei Pavlovich to win this fight, and I would lean more towards the knockout victory. Give me Sergei Pavlovich to get the job done here, with Derrick Lewis also being very live to get the knockout himself. Obviously, I think that goes without being said. The line is pretty much dead even here, and this fight, listen, if I'm picking against Derrick Lewis, you might just want to go the opposite direction, because I've had just about as tough of a time picking and betting against Derrick Lewis as any other fighter in history. I had Alexander Volkov to defeat Derrick Lewis. You guys know how that went. I was there in Vegas for the fights live, and Derrick Lewis was getting styled on. There was record-breaking strikes for Volkov, and then Lewis gets that knockout the last second. If you want to run through the list for fun, we could do it real quick. I had, let's see here, who did I have? I had Curtis Blades, I do believe, mixed in some action or whatnot in a parlay. He obviously went out there and hit him with that flying knee. I had Alexei Oleinik, actually. That was a dog shot, a very small dog shot. I thought Oleinik could have grinded him out in the grappling department. That was not the case. I thought Ivanov might have had some potential to do that as well, and he dropped the split decision. It's just been very tough for me betting against or picking against or with Derrick Lewis. So take my selection here with a grain of salt, but I do believe Sergei Pavlovich gets the job done via knockout. We got the interim title on the line. Brandon Moreno, the assassin baby, taking on Kai Kara-France. Kai Kara-France, first off, he's been on an absolute tear. 3 fights in a row. Knockouts over Rogerio Bontorin. Knockouts over Cody Garbrandt. And coming off that big victory against Askarov, who was extremely hot going into that fight. And Kai Kara-France was able to land some very big shots on him. France, in my opinion, is going to be the more technical striker here against Moreno. Moreno is a little bit more raw with his talents. He's explosive. Obviously, he's still getting better and better every time he goes out there. His last performance was a little bit questionable, obviously. I'm sure a lot of you guys would agree. You know, he started off that fight a little slow against Deiveson Figueiredo. You know, he dropped the ball there. I thought that was a fight that he should have went out there and took. Obviously, he had just defeated Figueiredo in that last fight where he was able to submit him and just did not look himself in the rematch. Now, a lot of people believe that Figueiredo, you know, he went back to the drawing board, was training with Team Alpha Male and doing some different things. And a lot of people felt that he was more motivated and more ready for that fight. But nevertheless, I didn't feel that Moreno looked as good in that fight as he did in the previous fight, which was a little weird to me. Still only 28 years old. I know he's very, very motivated to get that fight. I thought Moreno was going to edge Figueiredo to get the decision. Obviously, the crowd was rooting for him and whatnot. It was a very close fight, but I do believe that Moreno left that in the judges' hands and allowed that to happen. Now, in this fight, it's a little tricky because I think that France is definitely live here based on the fact that he's going to be more technically sound and it's going to have the possibility to land a big shot on Moreno on the feet. We saw Moreno getting clipped a little bit here and there against Figueiredo. We saw him getting dropped in that last fight. And that's really what cost him in the fight. He was getting hit with some big shots. And can France show up here on the big stage and land another big shot? I think that there's potential for that to happen. I've been a little bit back and forth with my selection here. France is going to be 3 inches shorter with 3.5 inches of a disadvantage as far as the reach goes. I've been torn. I was going to pick Kai Kara-France to win this fight, but I'll tell you what. I have a feeling that Moreno is going to show up here and get the job done. You know, if you run the tape back a little bit on France, I didn't like the way that he got choked out by Brandon Royvaldo, the way he stuck his neck in that sub. Obviously, we know that Moreno is live to sub anybody. He's live to do a lot of different things. He's a wild and very well-rounded fighter. I wouldn't be shocked if we saw something like that. Just based on that size advantage as well. Give me Brandon Moreno to win the fight here. I think that he digs deep and he has that 5-round experience as well. I think that Moreno gets the job done in a fight that may play out closer than a lot of people believe. Moreno has shown that he's extremely tough. Even if he gets dropped or if he gets hurt, he will hang on. And I think that he'll come back and he'll do his own damage. And I think that he takes this fight. If Kai Kara-France is going to get the job done, I think he's going to have to really put Moreno away with one of those clean shots early. But we'll see about that. From a betting standpoint, we're going to see a line next to Brandon Moreno's name of right around that -200 to a -215 range. So just a tad above a 2-1 favorite. I'm interested to see which way this line moves. I'm interested to see if we see action continue to come in on France. I know that people do respect his game. As you guys see, I do. But I still got to edge Moreno to get the job done here. I think that he might have some success with his wrestling as well and his grappling. And on the feet, he's been getting better and better. He's a wild striker. His unorthodox type of striking may give France some problems as well. Give me Brandon Moreno overall in the pick selection there, with the value more so favoring Kai Kara-France. I'd rather have a line on Kai Kara-France at +175 than a line on Brandon Moreno at -205, to be quite honest with you guys. Interested to see how the fight plays out. I pick Moreno overall. Taking a look at some of these betting lines on Bovada.lv, let's take a quick look at that main event betting line. You'll see Amanda Nunes is at a -275 right now. The comeback of Julianna Pena at +220. Bovada.lv is where it's at. You guys know this is the sports book that I use. If you guys are looking to join Bovada.lv, please reach out to me so I could send you my referral link. And if you sign up through my referral link, you will get a special bonus in your account, as will I get a bonus for referring you, of course. And I will give you guys 2 fight cards for free. 2 fight cards for free for my official bets, okay? So it's definitely a deal you don't want to pass up on. In my opinion, it's the best sports book. And please don't hesitate to reach out to me. You got my email at mmafortuneteller@gmail.com, or you got me on Instagram and Twitter. You could shoot me a message there. Please, guys, I'll help you guys navigate and work your way through this website as much as you guys need help with. And it's all pretty transparent, though. But it does help me from a referral standpoint as well. And it's the best sportsbook out there. It's a no-brainer, guys. Reach out to me. We got the Bantamweight Championship of the World on the line. We got the rematch. Julianna Pena taking on Amanda Nunes. First and foremost, you guys better be commenting below who you guys have winning this fight. I'm very interested to hear who you guys got. I've already been interested to hear a few of you guys, few of you guys have been telling me. Some people want to jump on the line of Amanda Nunes right here at minus 275 before it gets steamed. People remember that the line that Amanda Nunes was at in the last fight, which you could pull up here. Amanda Nunes settled in right around a minus 1250 favorite, opening up around a minus 800, which is crazy. So some people seeing that line of Amanda Nunes at right around minus 275, and they feel that there's value there. But can we just talk about for a second what Julianna Pena went out there and did against Amanda Nunes the last time they threw down? Went out there, was getting the better of her on the feet first and foremost. She was landing the cleaner shots. I mean, it was ugly. It was a scrap. They were going at it, but Pena was finding the mark more accurately, and then of course dropping her, wearing her out, getting that takedown, ripping her down to the mat, taking her down there and setting up that sub. And the way Nunes just gave in. Listen, Julianna Pena talked about what she was going to do for a long time, and she went out there and did it. She remembered the fight of Kat Zingano against Amanda Nunes back in the day, where Kat Zingano got on top of Nunes and was breaking her down and beating her up down in the mat. She felt like she was going to be able to implement a similar type of tactic, and she basically did that to an extent. It was a little different, but she basically did do that. I could see Julianna Pena having more early success with her wrestling and her grappling, even before wobbling and hurting Nunes on the feet. I feel like Nunes was kind of out of that fight by the time she took her down. I could see Pena even having success in that department even earlier, and maybe breaking her more so down on the mat with her ground and pound and whatnot. Nunes, you guys know the deal with Nunes. I mean, she has serious power in the feet. Nunes is going to be live to land a big shot on the feet as well. Would not be surprised in the slightest if the script is completely flipped and you see Nunes landing those more crisp shots at the end of her punch and hurting Pena. I think there's a realistic possibility for that as well. I do want to bring up, we'll run back some of Pena's recent fights, some of her losses. She was caught in a choke by Jermaine Durandamy in the 3rd round. She was caught in an armbar submission by Valentina Shevchenko before that. So as far as of recently, her losses were via submission. She does have a solid chin. She has that big old jaw. And, I think that favors her in the sense that I'm not too worried about Amanda Nunes going out here pulling off some type of flashy sub if Pena is slipping. And I just feel that Pena has really hit her stride. I feel that she's extremely confident in herself, especially after coming off the victory. I'm going to be picking Julianna Pena to win the rematch. She's going to go 2-0 against Amanda Nunes. I really feel that she is the kryptonite against a girl like Amanda Nunes. And I kind of wonder where Amanda Nunes is in her career. I know she has to be extremely motivated for this fight, but I still wonder where she's at in her career, in the sense that she's no longer training at American Top Team. She has her own little gym that she's training at with her wife and whatnot. She has a daughter now. It's a little different than when you're at American Top Team and you're really grinding and putting in the work with some of the greatest fighters. I think that this new gym that she has going on, there's a major difference in my opinion. And I think that she's just at a way different point in her career with the family and whatnot. And I think that Julianna Pena is built just a little bit differently. And although Nunes looks to be in phenomenal shape here, screw it. I'm going to take the dog here. I'm taking Amanda Nunes to win the fight. And excuse me, I'm taking Julianna Pena to win the fight. Coffee's wearing off here. We've been chirping for a while. I'm taking Julianna Pena to win the fight, who's as high as a plus 250 dog. And I would not be surprised if she settles in right around a plus 350, plus 300 to 350, that type of range. I think money will come in on Amanda Nunes. That's what I'm thinking. But we'll monitor the line. But give me Julianna Pena as the pick. It's a risky pick, but I have a great deal of respect for Julianna Pena. And that will be my main event pick. And you guys better comment below who you're taking in that main event fight. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up UFC 277. You know we got to hit you with some parting words. Something that came to mind that we could talk about was, the way that UFC London ended, right, with Tom Aspinall getting injured within seconds. I had a 4-unit play in him. Obviously, I lost some money. All right, guys, that's like 2K for me, all right, if you want to understand from a unit standpoint. It's not a good feeling when you see 2K go down the drain in seconds like that off a freak injury so early in the fight. We saw in the Brian Ortega fight as of recently as well. We've been seeing it actually a lot recently. When something happens like that, I know a lot of you guys can feel me. There's an urgency where you want to win that money back rapidly. And I just want to tell you guys, be careful doing that, because I know I had that urge this past weekend. I was very frustrated and I had a lot of money to play with from all the winnings I had before that fight. Just be careful. Make sure you stay grounded, because if you start chasing money, it will always catch you in the behind. Remember that, guys. If you start chasing, you may have some success here and there, but if you're not making intelligent decisions on your bets and you're just getting in an emotional standpoint and you're like, okay, I lost this fight, now I'm going to throw all this to get this back on this baseball player or something the same night, or whatever you're betting on, try to avoid doing that, because it will cost you some money and you will wake up even more upset after the fact. All right, stick to the script. If you guys are doing good long term, like we are over here from our betting standpoint, I know that I'm going to go back to the drawing board and I'm going to have some money waiting for me the following weekend. And you want to have that type of mentality. Just get back to the fight tape, start breaking down fight tape, find your spots where you feel comfortable making money, where you feel confident you're going to make money. Don't just throw some giant play together last second as you log into your sports book and you just see a line there and you say, oh, if I throw this much money at it, I'm going to get this much back. And I think that you're going to put yourself in a crappy situation. So just be careful with that. That's what I want to say as we sign out here. All right, guys, go catch me on Instagram, MMA Fortune Teller _. You guys know we'll be live in the story and whatnot. We'll be active there. What else? If you guys are looking to work with me, please don't hesitate to reach out. Hope all you guys have an amazing week. Don't forget, Dana White's Contender Series taking place tomorrow. I will have that video out to you guys before that fight card kicks off, hopefully by tonight. All right, guys. I love you all. I care for you, all you guys out there. So make sure you guys are doing well. You guys are making smart decisions. And especially you guys that are here at the end of this video. You guys know you guys are my brothers out there. My brothers and sisters. I'm sure there's a couple sisters out there too. All right, guys. Much love to all you. All right, signing out. Teller.
Welcome to the show. This is the MMA Fortune Teller. Yeah.
The MMA Fortune Teller.
The teller.